This is a special I-Team documentary, Prisoners of the Harvest.
I've wandered all over your green growing land. Wherever your crops are, I'll lend you my hand. On the edge of your city, see me and then I come with the dust and I'm gone with the wind.
Slavery was abolished after the Civil War, but its echo continues to ring through the fields and groves of the rural South. It is migrant farm worker slavery. The legal term is involuntary servitude or peonage, a crime seldom exposed because its victims are usually too afraid to talk. But after 5 months of investigation, we have been able to penetrate that silence. We now present a rare glimpse inside one migrant slave camp, told by those who lived there and managed to escape. Theirs is a story of violence and brutality, of poor, illiterate farm workers, mostly black and elderly, who say they were literally kidnapped off the streets and forced to work against their will. Their words may be difficult to understand, but their story is not. These men are migrant farm workers. They move with the seasons. Most have spent their lives picking the fruit and vegetables Americans eat. The work is hard, the hours long. The pay, very little. Some of these men are sick. Many are alcoholics. This is their story. James Williams, 63 years old, sick with tuberculosis. He says this man, Willie Warren Sr., a farm labor contractor based in Orlando, forced him into a van at this work camp in the farming town of Laughlin, 60 miles from Tampa, in the heart of Central Florida.
And he told me, say, get in that wagon. I said, Dad ain't going back to Laughlin. You get in the wagon. I wound up again, I was in North Carolina.
Why did you get in the wagon?
See, I know that I was mold. I know that. I couldn't have whipped them by myself. I know that too. I didn't have nothing at all in my pocket to keep him off of me. I know that. I didn't have another choice.
Williams says he was freed from the camp only when his tuberculosis got so bad that he began to cough up blood.
Grabbed me in my car and threw me back in the truck.
Len Gaston, 64 years old. He says he was trying to hitchhike a ride to the store when he was picked up by a passing van. But instead of going to the store, he says he was taken against his will to a cucumber field. The driver was one of Warren's men. What did he say?
No, you ain't going nowhere. You're going to stay here with us.
Whether you wanted to or not.
That's not. I didn't have any choice.
The crew leader was Willie Warren Jr., the son of Senior. Gaston says Warren Jr. forced him to work 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. The pay, less than $1 a day, much of it in cigarettes and wine. Gaston says that when he tried to escape from the camp, guards caught him and brought him back. He says Warren Jr. was waiting with a rubber hose.
He whooped me with it. I couldn't walk in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Where did he whip you?
All over.
These men are not alone. Other migrants told us that they were kidnapped, beaten, and forced to work by the two Warrens.
They come back up and they grab me, start hitting them, pushing me around and throw them in the van.
And they hit me with a bottle on the top of my head and they threw me out the back door.
They wouldn't grab me, brought me back over, to the campaign. They make a slave out of me. I couldn't stand it.
Other farm workers from Florida to Philadelphia told us about being kidnapped and beaten by the Warrens. The stories are the same. Workers stopped along the road, forced against their will into a bus owned by the Warrens, then driven to remote work camps throughout the South. There, workers say they were beaten, plied with wine, and kept in a constant cycle of debt and fear.
People on the chain gang get along better than that, and they done did a crime.
George McMahon says he was actually sold like a slave from Warren Jr. to his father.
And his daddy had any money, so we had to go do what his daddy said do. He ain't had to pay attention to the son no more. You had to do what the daddy said do, because he done paid for you.
It's the type of situation which is incomprehensible to people who haven't come in contact with it before.
David Rubman is a legal aid lawyer. He represents migrants who work for the Warrens.
This man said to me, my great-grandfather was a slave, my grandfather was a slave. I don't want to be a slave also.
And so these descendants of slaves became slaves themselves, not a slavery of whips or of chains or of the auction block, but a bondage of another more subtle kind, an economic and psychological slavery of broken men with tuberculosis, alcoholism, helpless and sick.
Some that they bring back there wouldn't even much know where to be at. How did I get here? When did I get here? Who brought me here?
When they go looking for hands and all that down highways in different other towns, they put 3 or 4 cases of wine in there. You drink? Yeah. Yeah, get you a couple of them bottles over there and all that kind of stuff.
And if you tried to escape, what would happen?
They'll pick you up and bring you back there and whoop you.
And you saw that?
I've seen that. I really seen that.
Everybody's scared of him, because he get his crew and whip their asses.
Farm workers say that after being kidnapped, the Warrens took them to isolated work camps, like this one in Central Florida. Why didn't you just run away?
Run what way? How you gonna run away and don't know where you going through the woods?
Trying to slip off from the camp, man, it's just like trying to break out of jail. You gotta wait and you gotta bide your time. And you better be right. You better not get caught trying to slip away. Then you're gonna get hurt.
I would say thousands of people are being exploited. Thousands.
Sister Catherine Flynn is a nun who has helped farm workers escape from the Warrens. She says the Warrens isolate workers in remote camps in order to control them.
And as the camps get further and further from the road, then they are king of that camp. And they can kidnap, beat, threaten, do anything they want. And no one is going to do anything.
Workers say that because they were so isolated, they were forced to buy food from the Warrens at high prices.
These children got $40 a head just go get food stamps.
Match at the giveaway, Match had to pay 5 cents a box for them.
And you actually paid $1 for a piece of soap.
That's right.
Because of the high prices, farm workers stayed in constant debt to the Warrens. It became a vicious cycle. The more they owed, the longer they stayed and worked to pay off their debt. And the longer they stayed, the more they owed.
Well, you stayed in debt with him all the time. I mean, I paid him, but, you know, he ain't never give me no money then. I kept working.
Oh, he claimed we owed him.
Did you?
No, well, I couldn't see what it owed him for. What the hell is this?
James Moffus gave us pay receipts showing how his debt carried over from week to week. Moffus told us he didn't understand how he got in debt to Warren.
I still don't understand it.
And because most of these folks are honest and they grew up being honest all their lives, they believe, well, if I owe a debt, I'm going to pay it off. And that if I pay it off, he'll let me leave. There's always that carrot being held out in front of them saying, if you pay it off, you'll leave. And these people believe it.
We tried to talk to the Warrens about all of this.
I'm going to take that camera from you, and you going to get out my you don't have my while I found your in that ditch.
But they wouldn't answer our questions. In fact, the next day, a friend of the Warrens threw hot water at us, then hit me in the head with a pot. I had to get stitches in the emergency room of an Orlando hospital. Migrants who work for the Warrens say that kind of violence is common. They're adamant about what happened.
Mister, my father, which out in heaven, he know I'm telling the truth. And I can swear that on 7 stacks of Bible. Because, see, I've been there. I know.
In early October, the state attorney's office filed battery charges against the woman who attacked me. A warrant has been issued for her arrest, but no charges at all have been filed against the Warrens. Now, for more than a year, a federal grand jury in Tampa has been investigating the Warrens. Grand jury proceedings, of course, are secret. We don't really know what went on inside those chambers. But over the past few weeks, we have been able to learn at least a part of what happened. On June 8th, accompanied by FBI agents, 6 of the migrant farm workers we interviewed arrived at the federal courthouse in Tampa to testify before the grand jury. They included Len Gaston, Robert Lee Brown, James Williams, Edward Chestnut, George McMahon, and a 6th witness whose identity we promised not to reveal. Mary Brown had also been subpoenaed, but was too sick to testify. Sister Catherine Flynn was the last to appear, although her testimony was the longest. She told us that although 2 of the grand jurors asked skeptical questions, most listened so closely that you could hear a pin drop. The other migrants waited in the witness room, playing cards and exchanging stories about the Warrens. On June 9th, the grand jury met again. FBI agents dragged in Willie Lee Bates, who had failed to show up the day before and had to be located by the FBI in the middle of the night. A neighbor who lived near the Warrens' camp also testified. The Warrens themselves never appeared, although their defense counsel told us it had been under consideration. For the next 5 months, the grand jury continued to investigate, but the number of new witnesses quickly dwindled. A new U.S. attorney, Robert Merkel, was sworn in April. Merkel turned out to be far less vocal than his predecessor about prosecuting the case. At the end of October, the grand jury's term expired. No indictments were requested, and none were handed down. Although the case was extended to a new grand jury, the failure of the old one to indict appeared to be a serious, if not fatal, setback to the case. The U.S. attorney denies this, saying the matter is still under investigation, and that he is now doing a great deal of work on the case himself. But at least in the past, Merkel's office apparently had not made the case a priority. One example, when Len Gaston was flown in from Mississippi to testify, no one from Merkel's office bothered to meet the 64-year-old farm worker at the airport. We wanted to ask Merkel about this, but he has consistently declined to discuss details of the case. In fact, the only time he agreed to sit down and talk about it was when he called me into his office and attempted, unsuccessfully, to find out who had been providing me with information. But the U.S. Attorney's Office is just part of a larger system, a system that includes large corporations as well as government officials. These corporations make their profit by harvesting Florida's lucrative citrus crop. They're the companies that keep the Warrens in business. The corporations include B.C. Cook & Sons, based in Haines City, and Orange Co. of Florida Incorporated, based in Bartow. Neither company would talk to us on camera. Both say they're not using the Warrens anymore. They also say they didn't know about the Warrens mistreating their men.
The growers have the power, and citrus is powerful, and somebody's just turning their back on it.
Sister Catherine Flynn says the growers that are involved don't want to know how the Warrens treat their men.
But I don't care what the company is or who the particular grower may be. He should know, if he doesn't, who he is hiring. And I feel he's the top man and he is responsible.
But corporate growers aren't the only ones that have allowed Willie Warren to operate, because it's the federal government which licensed him in the first place. Without a federal crew leader certificate, Warren would be out of business. But Warren has that certificate, and with it, the government's seal of approval.
I would say that we have been lenient with him, yes.
Chris Geringer is the area director for the U.S. Department of Labor, the federal agency that has licensed Warren Sr. every year since 1975. Do you think Willie Warren is the kind of person who should be a crew leader?
Well, I personally don't think so, no.
Yet Warren has a crew leader's license, even though Labor Department files contain numerous allegations that the Warrens beat and kidnapped farm workers. In fact, confidential Labor Department records, which were obtained by the I-Team, repeatedly list Warren as one of the worst violators of the federal farm labor law in the southeastern United States. And documents obtained under the Freedom of Information Act show that according to the department's own records, Warren had a long history of violating the law. 1973, the Labor Department finds Warren operating illegally. 1974, an injunction orders him to comply with the federal farm labor law. 1975, Warren again violating the law. According to a Labor Department report, Warren surely knows about the requirements. Because of his previous injunction, criminal action should be sought. Was any criminal action ever taken in that case?
Not to my knowledge.
Why not?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Do you think it should have been?
It would appear, based on what was said there, that it certainly should have been considered.
1976, Warren again cited for violating the farm labor law. According to the report, it is recommended that the full penalties be assessed and that Warren be found in contempt, and further, that he not be issued a certificate in the future. Was he issued a certificate in the future?
As far as I know, he was.
In violation of that report?
Well, that is merely a recommendation by a compliance officer.
Why wasn't that recommendation followed?
I have no idea.
1977, more violations. Warren is fined, but as in all previous years, his license is renewed.
What can I say?
And so it continued every year after. 1979, again violations. Labor Department report recommends Warren be put in jail. Instead, the department renews his license. 1980, still more violations, still another renewal of his license. So it went in 81, so it went in 82. Despite repeated violations, Warren's license is renewed.
If the law means anything, it means that people like the Warrens should not have licenses. Otherwise, it's just a farce. The Department of Labor documented year after year after year violation of these laws. And now we are here in 1982, and Willie Warren still has his license. And it is absolutely mind-boggling to me.
The Labor Department doesn't seem to know exactly who decided to renew Warren's license. Their Tampa office told us the decision was made in Atlanta. Atlanta told us it was made in Washington. And when we talked to Washington, they referred us back to Tampa. When there is a history of violations going back almost 10 years, and your own records call his violations willful and recurring, don't you think his license should be revoked for that?
Probably so. I would say I think his license should be revoked for that. But the thing that you have to remember is you've got to have a very strong case.
What stronger case could you possibly have than one that goes back almost 10 years?
I don't know. I don't know.
So while the bureaucracy turns its back, and while corporations count their profits, for the migrant farm workers, nothing seems to change.
1,000 years my people was a slave. When I was born, they teach me this way. One 1,000 years my people was a slave. When I was born, they teach me this way. Tip your hat to the people. Be careful, son, about what you say.
3 weeks after this story first ran, the U.S. Labor Department revoked Warren's license. But 4 days later, Warren walked into the Labor Department office and left with a new crew leader's license, issued in the name of his wife. Officials of the department were embarrassed, but said there was nothing they could do about it. Mrs. Warren still holds her license. Now, slavery can be a state of mind as well as of the body, a psychological as well as a physical fact. The elderly black men who worked for the Warrens endured one kind of bondage, but there are others, especially for children and illegal aliens. It is the sound they fear the most. The sound of handcuffs that means arrest and deportation. They are illegal aliens, many just children. They speak no English.
Pasajeros con destino a México.
They have taken the chance of coming here to escape the desperate poverty of their homeland. Now, they will be shipped back. The end of their journey. The beginning is here, in the fields where they are put to work. It is here where illegals are most easily exploited, afraid to speak out for fear of being deported.
No, con la migración no.
This man speaks no English. He is a farm worker in these tomato fields outside Arcadia. Many who pick alongside him are illegal aliens. I asked whether that matters to the owner.
No, el dueño no le interesa.
The owner isn't interested, he said. Nobody bothers the illegals unless there's fighting. Otherwise, they don't have any problems.
Es lo que quiere el trabajo.
Do you have any illegal aliens out here?
No comment.
Marvin Williams is the foreman here. He works for the Harloff Packing Company in Palmetto. He says the owner, Roger Harloff, is the one who does the actual hiring. Farm labor contractors who have worked for Harloff say he is out in the fields every day and that he knows about the children and aliens working illegally in his fields.
The people, they don't talk English and they don't have Social Security numbers, so they have to be on leave. And everybody will know that.
And that included Roger Harloff.
That will include the boss man, Roger Harloff.
Harloff declined our request for an interview. He told us he can't help it if illegals sneak onto his fields.
No. You will not record what I'm saying.
James Ray Keene operates the Keene Harvesting Company just outside Haines City and the Keene Labor Camp in Davenport. He also uses workers from this camp in Auburndale.
Passport? My house. Passport? Passport?
These are some of his men, illegal aliens recently picked up at a roadblock by the Border Patrol. They are about to be deported. It was not a subject Keene wanted to talk about.
She had no pictures, buddy.
Didn't you?
Goddamn sure me no pictures.
Now,
Don't give me no uproar, buddy.
Don't touch his camera. Didn't you know you had illegal aliens?
I don't know a damn thing. I'm a contractor.
And you had no idea these people were illegal aliens?
Where are you from?
Sir, I asked you a question.
Anybody ask you where you from when you go to work?
But apparently, this was not the first time that Keene worked illegal aliens. For the past 3 consecutive years, the U.S. Labor Department received reports that Keene was using undocumented workers. According to an internal memorandum obtained by the I-Team under the Freedom of Information Act, contractors in the area have been complaining that illegals are removed from Ray Keene every year, but nothing is done to Keene. Many of the contractors state they are going to work illegals since nothing has happened to Keene. Unquote.
Right now, you got 7 people here that don't have cards. You realize that's against the law to hire illegal aliens? You don't know, you're a crew leader, you're supposed to know.
Okay.
The crew leader who hired the illegals on behalf of Keene was deported along with his men. But Keene is still in business.
The more devious growers have definitely seized upon the insulating factor of crew leaders to eliminate any possibility of themselves being prosecuted.
So while illegal aliens live in fear of getting caught, for the growers in the field, it's business as usual. Of course, not all growers use illegal aliens. Not all crew leaders enslave farm workers. There are some possible reforms that could improve conditions. First, enforce the laws that are already on the books. Slavery and peonage are illegal, but cases are rarely prosecuted. Witnesses are often afraid to talk, and federal officials usually spend their time on other matters. Second, apply administrative sanctions. Farm labor contractors who abuse their workers could be put out of business if federal officials revoke their crew leader's license. But that, too, is rarely done. In an age of budget cutbacks, farm workers are not a political priority. Third, unlicensed crew leaders should be prosecuted. Example, this man, Augustus Garvin.
You're a crew leader, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We found Garvin operating a crew in Lee County, even though he has no state crew leader's license. That's against the law. But once again, authorities don't often enforce it.
Well, take that off, I'll cram it down your throat. Next time y'all come to farm, I mean it!
Fourth, make people like this man, the growers who were in charge, responsible. It was Andy Burke who hired Garvin even though he didn't have a state license. It didn't seem to matter that he was operating illegally.
Just get out of here before I kill you. Just leave me.
Need to see your green card, passport.
Fifth, growers who use illegal aliens should be held responsible, just like the crew leaders who do the actual hiring. Growers shouldn't be able to hide behind middlemen to skirt around the law. Sixth, the crew leader system could be abolished completely, leaving the growers to do the actual hiring and managing of farm workers. That way, there would be no middleman to skim the profits or to duck the responsibility for workers' conditions. Finally, migrants could organize a union to force growers to improve conditions. Activists say that's the only way to stop abuses. Growers say unions would drive prices up and small farmers out. Whatever the final solution, one thing is clear. Until major changes are made in the system itself, exploitation of farm workers will continue, as regular and as predictable as the harvest itself. The story of farm worker misery is so well known that it has almost become a cliche for everybody but those who have to live it. Perhaps it's because of who these people are. They don't have high-priced lobbyists on their side or powerful congressmen nor influential attorneys. In fact, they rarely even bother to defend themselves. And so their hardship continues. It has been said that the true measure of a society is how it treats its weakest and most vulnerable members. More than a century after the Civil War, the question remains, will our society meet that test? I'm Mark Feldstein.
Every state of this union, migrants have been, we come with the dust, and we're gone with the wind. It's always we ramble that river and I, all along your green valley, I work till I die.
Pictures, buddy. I goddamn sure mean no pictures.
Travel this road until death sets me free, 'cause pastures are plenty must always be free. Well, I wandered all over your green growing land, wherever your crops are, I'll lend you my hand. On the edge of your city, you'll see me, and then I've come with the dust, and I'm gone.